The morning sun was barely peeking over the mountains when Lucy heard the sound that made her stomach drop. Heavy boots on the porch steps, followed by her father's nervous cough. She knew that cough. It was the same one he'd been making for weeks now. Ever since the letters from the bank started arriving, Lucy wiped her hands on her apron and looked out the kitchen window. A man in a fine black suit was walking toward their front door, his polished boots clicking against the wooden boards. Even from behind she recognized him immediately. William Blackwood, the richest man in the territory and her father's oldest friend. "Lucy, come here, please," her father called from the front room. His voice sounded strained, like he was trying to keep something heavy from falling. She found them sitting across from each other at the small wooden table her mother had loved so much. Her father, Thomas, looked older than his 50 years. His hands were rough and calloused from working the ranch, but they were shaking slightly as he held his coffee cup. William, on the other hand, looked exactly like what he was, a man who had never known a day of real hardship. "Sit down, daughter," Thomas said, not meeting her eyes. Lucy sat, her heart beginning to race. William was watching her with those cold gray eyes of his, the same way he looked at cattle he was thinking of buying. "Lucy," William began, his voice smooth and controlled, "your father and I have been discussing your future." "My future?" Lucy felt confused. She was only 19, but she had never been included in discussions about her future before. Thomas cleared his throat. "The bank ... they're calling in our loan, the whole amount. We have 30 days or they'll take the ranch." The words hit Lucy like a physical blow. This ranch had been in their family for 15 years. Her mother was buried on the hill behind. The house, this was their home, their life. "How much do we owe?" she asked quietly. $3,000, Thomas said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lucy's mind reeled. $3,000 might as well have been 3 million. They'd barely made enough to keep food on the table and hay for the horses. In her entire life, she had never seen more than $20 at one time. "But there's a solution," William said, leaning forward. "I'm prepared to pay off the entire debt." Lucy felt a flicker of hope. William was her father's friend. They had known each other since before she was born. Maybe there was a way out of this nightmare. "What would you want in return?" she asked. Though something in his expression made her stomach turn, William smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I want you to marry me, Lucy." The room went completely silent. Lucy stared at him, certain she had heard wrong. "I'm sorry, what? Marriage?" William repeated calmly. "You and I, a proper wedding, of course. Nothing rushed or inappropriate." Lucy looked at her father, waiting for him to laugh, to tell William he was being ridiculous. But Thomas was staring. At the table, his face pale. "Papa?" Lucy's voice was small, like a child's. It's not such a strange idea," Thomas said slowly. "William is a good man. He's successful. He could give you a life I never could. But he's—" Lucy stopped herself. She was going to say old enough to be my father, but that seemed cruel. Still, William was 45 years old. She had known him her entire life, but never as anything more than her father's friend who occasionally came for dinner. "I know this is sudden," William said, his voice gentle but firm. "But think about it practically. You would never want for anything. You'd have the finest clothes, the best food, a beautiful home, and your father would get to keep his ranch." Lucy felt like she was drowning. I need time to think." "Of course," William said, standing up. "I'll give you 2 weeks to prepare. The wedding will be simple, just family and a few friends. Nothing too elaborate." 2 weeks? Lucy's voice cracked. "That should be plenty of time to arrange everything," William said matter-of-factly. "I'll speak to the preacher tomorrow." After William left, Lucy sat in the kitchen staring at her hands. Her father had gone outside to feed the horses, but she could hear him talking to himself, the way he did when he was trying to convince himself of something. That night, Lucy couldn't sleep. She lay in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had happened. Marriage had always seemed like something far in the future. She had imagined falling in love with someone her own age, someone who made her laugh and treated her like an equal. William Blackwood was nothing like that. He was serious and controlling, the kind of man who expected his word to be law. She had seen how he treated his workers, how he talked down to people he considered beneath him. The thought of being married to him, of having to obey him for the rest of her life, made her feel sick. But what choice did she have? If she refused, her father would lose everything. The ranch where she had learned to ride, where she had helped, birth countless calves, where her mother had taught her to cook and sew. All of it would be gone. The next morning, Lucy tried to go about her normal routine. She fed the chickens, gathered eggs, and helped her father mend the fence. But everything felt different now. Every familiar task reminded her that soon none of this would be hers anymore. "You don't have to do this," her father said suddenly as they worked together. I could find another way." But they both knew there was no other way. They had already sold everything they could spare. The cattle were thin, the horses were old, and the land itself was mortgaged to the bank. "It's okay, Papa," Lucy said, though the words felt like glass in her throat. That evening, Lucy walked to the small cemetery on the hill where her mother was buried. She knelt beside the simple wooden cross and spoke to her mother as if she were still there. "I don't know what to do, Mama," she whispered. "I know you always said I should marry for love, but if I don't do this, Papa will lose everything, and maybe William isn't so bad. Maybe I could learn to be content." But even as she said the words, Lucy knew they weren't true. She had seen the way William looked at her like she was something he owned. She had heard the way he spoke to his current housekeeper, cold and demanding. The thought of spending her life trying to please such a man made her feel empty inside. Over the next few days, neighbor women began arriving to help with wedding preparations. They brought fabric for a dress, flowers for decorations, and advice Lucy didn't want to hear. "You're so lucky," said Mrs. Peterson, the banker's wife. "William Blackwood is quite a catch. You'll never have to worry about money again." "He's a bit older, of course," added Mrs. Chun, who ran the general store. "But older men make better husbands. They're more settled, more responsible." Lucy smiled and nodded, but inside she felt like screaming. None of these women seemed to understand that she didn't want to be lucky. She wanted to be free. Every night, Lucy prayed. She had never been particularly religious, but now she found herself on her knees beside her bed, begging God for some way out of this situation. She prayed for her father to find another solution. She prayed for William to change his mind. She prayed for anything that would free her from this trap. But as the days passed and the wedding preparations continued, it seemed like her prayers were falling on deaf ears. The dress was being sewn, the flowers were being arranged, and the preacher had been spoken to. In less than 2 weeks, Lucy would become Mrs. William Blackwood, whether she wanted to or not. The worst part was seeing her father's relief. As the wedding drew closer, Thomas began to smile again for the first time in months. The weight of losing the ranch was lifting from his shoulders, and he genuinely seemed to believe he was doing the right thing for his daughter. "You'll be happy, Lucy," he said one evening as they sat on the porch. "William is a good man. He'll take care of you." Lucy nodded, but in her heart she knew that being taken care of was not the same as being happy. And as she looked out at the vast Wyoming landscape, she wondered if she would ever feel truly free again. 1 week before the wedding, Lucy was hanging laundry behind the house when she heard the sound of horse hooves on the dirt road. She looked up to see a rider approaching slowly, his hat pulled low against the morning sun. The man sat easy in his saddle, like he'd been born there, and his horse moved with the kind of calm confidence that came from good training. Lucy's father emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. The stranger dismounted and walked over, leading his horse by the reins. Even from a distance, Lucy could see he was young, maybe 25, with dusty clothes and worn boots that spoke of long days on the trail. "Morning," the stranger said, touching the brim of his hat. "Name's Cole. I'm looking for work. Heard you might need an extra hand around here." Thomas looked surprised. "Word travels fast in these parts." "Yeah, I could use some help, but I can't pay much." "Food and a place to sleep would be enough," Cole replied. "I'm not planning to stay long. Just need to earn enough for supplies before." I move on? Lucy found herself studying the stranger as her father considered the offer. Cole had dark hair that curled slightly at the edges, and when he turned his head, she caught a glimpse of kind brown eyes. There was something gentle about his face, even though his jaw was strong and his shoulders broad from hard work. "What kind of work you done before?" Thomas asked. "Little bit of everything. Cattle drives, horse breaking, ranch work. Started when I was 14. Cole's voice was quiet but steady. "I know my way around animals." As if to prove his point, their old horse Rusty wandered over to the fence. Rusty was known for being unfriendly to strangers, but Cole reached out slowly and let the horse smell his hand. Within seconds, Rusty was nuzzling Cole's palm like they were old friends. "Well, I'll be," Thomas muttered. "That horse hasn't taken to a stranger in years." Lucy watched, fascinated, as Cole continued to pet Rusty. His movements were calm and patient, like he understood something about animals that other people didn't. "You can stay in the bunkhouse," Thomas decided. "We'll try you out for a week. See how it goes." Cole nodded and began unsaddling his horse. "Thank you kindly. I'll earn my keep." As Lucy went back to hanging laundry, she couldn't help but sneak glances at Cole. He moved with a quiet efficiency, taking care of his horse before settling his few belongings in the small building that served as a bunkhouse. Everything he owned seemed to fit in one worn saddlebag and a BDROL dot. By noon, Cole had already fixed a broken gate, helped move cattle to a new pasture, and started repairing the fence that had been bothering Thomas for weeks. Lucy brought him water and a sandwich, trying not to seem too eager. "Thank you," Cole said, accepting the food gratefully. "That's mighty kind of you." "You work fast," Lucy observed, nodding toward the fence. Cole smiled, and Lucy felt something flutter in her chest. "My pa always said idle hands make for an idol. Mind, better to stay busy. Where's your family now?" Lucy asked, then immediately felt embarrassed for being so forward. Something flickered across Cole's face, but he answered gently. "Lost my parents when I was 16. Been on my own mostly since then. I'm sorry," Lucy said softly. "I lost my mother 3 years ago. I know how hard it is." Cole looked at her with those warm brown eyes, and Lucy felt like he really saw her. "Not just the girl who brought him lunch. It gets easier," he said. "Not the missing them part, but the living with it part." Over the next few days, Cole proved himself invaluable around the ranch. He seemed to have an endless supply of knowledge about fixing things, and he worked from dawn to dusk without complaining. More importantly, he was kind to everyone he met, from Lucy's father to the neighbor children who sometimes came around. Lucy found herself looking forward to their brief conversations. When she brought him meals or helped with chores, they would talk about small things, the weather, the horses, the way the mountains looked different at sunset. But somehow, even these simple conversations felt meaningful. "You seem sad sometimes," Cole said one evening as they walked back from checking on the cattle. "If you don't mind me saying so." Lucy felt her cheeks warm. She hadn't realized it was so obvious. "I'm getting married next week," she said quietly. "Congratulations," Cole said, but his voice sounded puzzled. "You don't sound very happy about it." Lucy stopped walking and looked out at the sunset. "It's complicated." Cole waited patiently, not pushing her to explain. There was something about his quiet presence that made her want to talk, to tell someone the truth about her situation. "It's not a marriage I chose," she said finally. "My father arranged it to save the ranch." Cole was quiet for a long moment. "That's a heavy burden to carry," he said softly. "My father thinks he's doing what's best for me," Lucy continued. "The man I'm marrying is wealthy. He'll take care of me, But you want to choose your own path," Cole finished gently. Lucy nodded, surprised by how well he understood. "Is that selfish of me?" "No," Cole said firmly. "It's human. Everyone deserves to have a say in their own life." As they walked back to the house, Lucy felt lighter somehow. Just having someone listen, someone who didn't try to convince her that she should be grateful, meant more than she could express. The next day, Lucy was helping Cole repair a water trough when she noticed a small, worn photograph tucked into his shirt pocket. "Is that your family?" she asked. Cole pulled out the photograph carefully. It showed a young girl, maybe 15, with dark hair and a bright smile. My sister Grace, she's the reason I keep moving around. She's beautiful, Lucy said. Where is she now? Cole's expression grew troubled. I don't know. She disappeared. 2 years ago, one day she was there, the next she was gone. No note, no explanation. Lucy's heart ached for him. You're looking for her. Every town I go to, I ask around. Show her picture. Sometimes people remember seeing her, but the trail always goes cold. Cole tucked the photograph back in his pocket. She was all the family I had left. I'm sure you'll find her, Lucy said, though she wasn't sure of any such thing. Maybe, Cole said, but I won't stop looking. She's out there somewhere, and she might need help. The love in his voice when he talked about his sister made Lucy's chest tight. Here was a man who would travel across the country, work any job, sleep anywhere, just to find someone he loved. It was so different from the calculated way William had proposed to her. As the days passed, Lucy began to dread the approaching wedding. Even more, being around Cole made her realize what she was giving up. Not just her freedom, but the possibility of finding someone who truly cared about her feelings, someone who would listen to her dreams and fears. One evening, as Cole was teaching her to rope cattle, their hands touched briefly as he adjusted her grip. The contact sent a warm sensation up her arm, and when she looked up, Cole was watching her with an expression that made her heart race. Lucy, he said quietly, then seemed to catch himself. I should probably get back to work. But neither of them moved. They stood there in the fading light, close enough that Lucy could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes, close enough that she could smell the scent of leather and honest work that clung to his clothes. You deserve better than a marriage you didn't choose, Cole said softly. Lucy felt tears prick her eyes. But what choice do I have? If I don't marry William, my father will lose everything. Cole's jaw tightened. There's always a choice. It might not be an easy one, but there's always a choice. That night, Lucy lay in bed thinking about Cole's words. For the first time since William had proposed, she began to wonder if there might be another way. Maybe she couldn't see it yet, but as she drifted off to sleep, she found herself praying not just for escape, but for the courage to fight for her own happiness. Outside her window, Cole sat on the porch of the bunkhouse, looking up at the stars, and thinking about the sad girl who had somehow worked her way into his heart. He had planned to move on after a week, but now he couldn't bear the thought of leaving her to face a loveless marriage alone. Something would have to change. He just didn't know what yet. 3 days before the wedding, William arrived at the ranch earlier than usual. Lucy was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when she heard his voice outside, sharp and commanding. She looked through the window and saw him talking to Cole, who was mucking out the horse stalls. I don't want to see you talking to my future wife anymore, William was saying, his voice low but intense. You're here to work, not to socialize. Cole straightened up, his face calm but his eyes hard. I was just being polite, sir. Nothing more. See that it stays that way, William replied coldly. Lucy has preparations to focus on. She doesn't need distractions. Lucy felt her cheeks burn with anger and embarrassment. She wasn't even married yet, and William was already trying to control who she could talk to. She watched as Cole nodded curtly and went back to his work, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. When William came inside, his demeanor changed completely. He smiled at Lucy as if the conversation outside had never happened. Good morning, my dear, he said, trying to kiss her cheek. Lucy turned away slightly so the kiss landed awkwardly near her ear. I've brought you something, William continued, pulling out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a pendant. That looked expensive, for the wedding. I want you to look perfect. Lucy took the necklace, trying to muster some gratitude. Thank you, it's beautiful. I have other gifts waiting at home, William said, sitting down at the table like he owned the place. Dresses, jewelry, everything a woman could want. You'll never lack for anything, Lucy. That's very generous, Lucy said quietly, but the gifts felt more like chains than treasures. There are some things we need to discuss, William continued, his tone becoming more serious. After we're married, there will be certain expectations. I run a large operation, and I need a wife who understands her role. What kind of role? Lucy asked, though she dreaded the answer. A supportive one. You'll manage the household, entertain guests when necessary, and focus on being a proper wife. No more of this ranch work. It's not suitable for a woman of your new position. Lucy felt her heart sink. Working with the animals and the land was one of the few things that brought her joy, but I love helping with the cattle and horses. William's expression darkened slightly. That's behind you now? I have plenty of help for that kind of work. Your job will be to make our home a place of comfort and refinement. After William left, Lucy felt more trapped than ever. She went outside to check on the chickens, trying to clear her head, when she noticed Cole watching her from across the yard. When their eyes met, he looked away quickly, but not before she saw the concern in his face. That evening, Lucy was walking near the old barn when she heard voices inside. She recognized William's voice immediately, but there was another man with him, someone she didn't know. The Peterson ranch will be next, William was saying. The bank will call in their loan next month, and they won't be able to pay. Just like the others, the stranger replied. This is working out better than we planned. Lucy pressed herself against the barn wall, her heart pounding. She knew she shouldn't be listening, but something about the conversation made her skin crawl. Once I'm married, I'll have legal access to the Mitchell land too, William continued. I told the old man I'd let him keep it, but of course that was just to get his cooperation. A year after the wedding, I'll find a reason to take it over. Lucy felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. William was planning to steal her father's ranch after all. Everything he'd promised was a lie. What about the girl? The stranger asked. Won't she cause problems? William laughed, and the sound made Lucy's blood run cold. Lucy, she's sweet but not very bright. Once she's my wife, she'd do what I tell her to. Women always do, eventually. Lucy bit her lip to keep from crying out. She backed away from the barn as quietly as possible, her mind reeling with what she'd just heard. William wasn't just forcing her into marriage, he was planning to destroy her father's life anyway. The next morning, Lucy could barely concentrate on her chores. She kept thinking about what she'd overheard, and the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. When she saw Cole working alone by the corral, she made a decision. Cole, she called softly, looking around to make sure. No one was watching. I need to talk to you. Cole looked up, surprised. Lucy, I don't think that's a good idea. William made it clear. I don't care what William said, Lucy interrupted. I heard him talking last night. He's planning to take my father's ranch after. We're married. Everything he promised was a lie. Cole's expression grew serious. Tell me exactly what you heard. Lucy repeated the conversation, and with each word Cole's face grew darker. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Lucy, he said finally, there's something I need to tell you. I haven't been completely honest about why I'm here. Lucy felt her heart skip. What do you mean? Cole looked around nervously, then gestured for her to follow him to a more secluded spot behind the barn. Once they were alone, he pulled out the photograph of his sister. Grace didn't just disappear, he said quietly. She was taken. I've been following a trail across 3 states, and it all leads back to men like William. Rich men who think they can buy and sell people like cattle. Lucy stared at him in shock. You think William took your sister? I think he knows who did. I've been asking questions in town, and William's name keeps coming up. There are stories about girls who disappeared, about deals made in back rooms. Nothing I can prove, but too many coincidences to ignore. Lucy felt sick, but why didn't you tell me before? Because I wasn't sure and I didn't want to put you in danger. But after what you just told me, I think William is even worse than I suspected. Cole reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small notebook. I've been keeping track of everything I've learned. Property transfers, missing persons, financial records. Look at this, he showed Lucy pages of careful notes. Names, dates, locations. A pattern of small ranches being foreclosed on, always with William somehow involved in buying the land for far less than it was worth. He's been doing this for years, Cole explained. Using his position at the bank to force people into debt, then swooping in to buy their land cheap. Your father's ranch is just the latest target, Lucy felt overwhelmed. But how does this connect to your sister? Cole's jaw tightened. 3 of the missing girls were daughters of men who lost their ranches to William. When families get desperate, they become vulnerable. Men like William know how to exploit that. You think he's still doing it? I think he's part of something bigger, a network of men who trade in human misery. And I think marrying you is just another way for him to gain power and control. Lucy sat down on a nearby log, her legs suddenly weak. What can we do? Even if we're right, who would believe? U.S.? William practically owns this town. Cole knelt beside her, his voice gentle but determined. We gather proof. Real evidence, not just suspicions? And we find a way to stop him before he can hurt anyone else. But the wedding is in 2 days. Lucy said desperately, There's no time. There's always time to do the right thing, Cole said firmly. But Lucy, you have to understand, if we do this, there's no going back. William won't just let us walk away. Lucy looked into Cole's eyes and saw the same determination she'd seen when he talked about finding his sister. Here was a man who would risk everything to protect the people he cared about. What do you need me to do? She asked. Cole smiled, and for the first time in days, Lucy felt hope. First, we need to get into William's office. If he's keeping records of his illegal activities, that's where they'll be. That's impossible. His house is always full of people. Not during the day. Most of his men work the ranch, and his housekeeper goes to town for supplies every Wednesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Lucy felt her heart racing. You want me to break into his house? I want you to keep watch while I break into his house, Cole corrected. You know the area better than I do. You can warn me if anyone comes. Lucy thought about her father, about the ranch, about all the other families William had destroyed. Then she thought about Cole's sister and all the other girls who might have suffered because of William's greed. Okay, she said finally. But if we're going to do this, we do it right. I know a way to get in without being seen. Cole squeezed her hand gently. Are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no turning back. Lucy squeezed back, surprised by her own courage. I'm sure. William has taken enough from people. It's time someone stood up to him. As they made plans for the next day, Lucy felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. Maybe she didn't have to be a victim after all. Maybe, with Cole's help, she could fight back, but even as hope grew in her chest, a small voice in her head warned her that men like William didn't give up their power easily. Tomorrow would be dangerous, and if they were caught, the consequences would be severe. Still, looking at Cole's determined face, Lucy knew she was ready to take that risk. Some things were worth fighting for, even if it meant everything might change forever. Wednesday morning arrived gray and cloudy, as if the sky itself knew something dangerous was about to happen. Lucy barely slept the night before, her mind racing with all the things that could go wrong. But when she saw Cole waiting by the corral, his face calm and determined, she felt her courage return. Are you ready? He asked quietly. Lucy nodded, though her hands were shaking slightly. The housekeeper left for town an hour ago. Most of William's men are working the far pasture today. If we're going to do this, now is the time. They rode toward William's ranch in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Lucy had been to his house many times over the years, but never with the intention of breaking in. The large stone building suddenly seemed threatening, like a fortress designed to keep secrets. Remember, Cole said as they approached, I'll go in through the back window. You stay here and watch the road. If you see anyone coming, whistle twice like we practiced. Lucy positioned herself behind a large oak tree where she could see the main road. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure it could be heard for miles. She watched as Cole slipped around to the back of the house, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who had done this before. Minutes passed like hours. Lucy kept checking the road, jumping at every sound. A bird landing on a branch made her heart leap. The wind rustling through the trees sounded like approaching footsteps. Finally, Cole reappeared, carrying a small wooden box and several papers. His face was grim. "We need to get back now," he said urgently. They rode back to the Mitchell ranch. In silence, but Lucy could feel the tension radiating from Cole. Once they were safely in the barn, he opened the box and spread the papers on a hay bale. "It's worse than I thought," Cole said quietly. "Look at this." The papers were contracts, bills of sale, and correspondence. Lucy's reading wasn't perfect, but she could make out enough to understand what she was seeing. Lists of names, some crossed out in red ink. Property deeds signed under suspicious circumstances. And worst of all, letters discussing the transportation of young women to new opportunities in distant cities. "These girls," Lucy whispered, pointing to a list of names. "They're all missing, aren't they?" Cole nodded grimly. "And look at this." He showed her a letter with an official-looking seal. "This is from someone in the territorial capital. They've been working together for years." Lucy felt sick as she read about girls being sold like livestock, about families being destroyed so rich men could get richer. "We have to stop him. We will," Cole said firmly. "But first, we need to get this evidence to the territorial marshal. He's the only one with enough authority to— Well, what do we have here?" Both Lucy and Cole spun around to find William standing in the barn doorway. He wasn't alone. Two of his men flanked him, their hands resting on their gun belts. "I had a feeling you two were up to something," William said, his voice deadly calm. "Breaking into my home, stealing my private papers, that's a serious crime." Cole stepped protectively in front of Lucy. "Those papers prove you're the one who's been committing crimes." William laughed coldly. "Who's going to believe a drifter and a disobedient girl? I'm a respected member of this community." "The territorial marshal will believe us," Lucy said, surprised by the strength in her own voice. "When he sees what you've done to those families, to those girls." "The territorial marshal is a reasonable man," William interrupted. "He understands that sometimes young people get confused, make up stories, especially when they're facing the consequences of their own poor choices." William's men moved closer, and Lucy realized they were trapped. The barn door was the only way out, and William was blocking it. "Here's what's going to happen," William continued, his voice taking on a threatening tone. "You're going to give me those papers. Cole here is going to leave town immediately and never come back. And you, Lucy, are going to marry me tomorrow." "As planned, no," Lucy said firmly. "I won't marry you." "Not now, not ever." William's face darkened. "You don't have a choice. Your father already agreed. The whole town is expecting it. You'll marry me or Cole will find himself facing charges for theft and trespassing. And trust me, in this territory those charges can be ... permanent." Lucy felt Cole tense beside her. She knew William was threatening to have Cole killed, and she knew he had the power to do it. "Leave her alone," Cole said quietly. "This is between you and me." "No, it's not," William snapped. "This is about property and respect and knowing your place. Lucy belongs to me now, and I won't have my property damaged by some saddle tramp." "I don't belong to anyone," Lucy said, her voice rising. "I'm not property. I'm a person with rights and feelings, and I choose who I want to be with." William's composure finally cracked. "You ungrateful little fool. Do you have any idea what I'm offering you? Wealth, status, security? And you'd throw it all away for some wandering nobody? I'd rather have nothing with someone who respects me than everything with someone who sees me as a possession," Lucy shot back, William's face twisted with rage. "You'll do as you're told or you'll regret it, both of you." He lunged forward, grabbing Lucy's arm roughly. "You're coming with me. We're moving the wedding to tonight. I'm tired of waiting." "Let go of her," Cole said, stepping forward. William's men drew their guns, but Cole didn't back down. "I said, let go of her." "You're in no position to make demands," William snarled, his grip tightening on Lucy's arm. "In fact, I think you've outlived your usefulness." William nodded to his men, and Lucy realized with horror that they were going to shoot Cole right there in the barn. Without thinking, she broke free from William's grip and threw herself between. "Cole and the gunman? No," she screamed. "Leave him alone." "Get out of the way, Lucy," William ordered. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me more than anything else in the world, Lucy said, her voice shaking but determined. If you want to hurt him, you'll have to go through me. William stared at her for a long moment, then his expression became truly frightening. If that's how you want it, he said coldly. He reached for his own gun, but Cole was faster. He tackled William, and they both went down hard. The other men couldn't shoot without risking hitting their boss, and in the confusion, Lucy grabbed a pitchfork from the wall. "Stay back," she warned William's men, though she wasn't sure she'd actually be able to use the weapon if it came to that. William and Cole were rolling on the ground, fighting for control of the gun. William was bigger, but Cole was younger and more desperate. The gun went off, the shot echoing through the barn, but the bullet went harmlessly into the roof. In the struggle, William's lantern was knocked over. The oil spilled across the dry hay, and within seconds flames were spreading across the barn floor. "Fire!" one of William's men shouted. "The whole place is going up." Lucy watched in horror as the flames spread rapidly through the old wooden structure. The smoke was getting thicker, making it hard to breathe and see. "Cole!" she called out, trying to locate him in the chaos. William's men had already fled, more concerned with saving their own lives than helping their boss. Lucy could hear Cole coughing somewhere in the smoke, but she couldn't see him. "Lucy, get out of here." Cole's voice came from somewhere near the back of the barn, but Lucy couldn't leave without him. She dropped the pitchfork and crawled toward his voice, staying low to avoid the worst of the smoke. She found him pinned under a fallen beam, with William unconscious beside him. "The beam's too heavy," Cole gasped. "Save yourself. Go." "I'm not leaving you," Lucy said firmly. She grabbed a piece of broken wood and used it as a lever, managing to lift the beam just enough for Cole to pull himself free. They stumbled toward the door together, but the flames were everywhere now. A burning post crashed down, blocking their path. The heat was intense, and Lucy could feel it singeing her hair and clothes. "This way," Cole shouted, leading her toward a small window at the back of the barn. He boosted her through first, then climbed out after her. They collapsed on the grass outside, coughing and gasping for clean air. Behind them, the barn was completely engulfed in flames. Lucy looked back and realized with a shock that William was still inside. "We have to help him," she said, starting to get up. Cole caught her arm. "It's too late. The whole structure is coming down." As if to prove his point, the roof collapsed with a thunderous crash, sending sparks and embers high into the air. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left but smoldering ruins. William Blackwood was gone, and with him, his plans to destroy Lucy's life and the lives of countless others. The papers they'd stolen were safe in Cole's saddlebag, proof of the crimes that had finally caught up with their perpetrator. Lucy stared at the ruins, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. William had been a terrible man, but she had never wanted anyone to die. Still, she couldn't deny that his death had freed her from a fate worse than death itself. "It's over," Cole said quietly, putting his arm around her shoulders. "You're free." For the first time in weeks, Lucy truly believed it. The news of William's death spread through the territory like wildfire. By the next morning, people were arriving at the Mitchell Ranch from all directions, neighbors, townspeople, and even the territorial marshal himself. Lucy sat on the porch, still wearing her smoke-stained dress, watching the steady stream of visitors with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The marshal, a tall man with kind eyes and a gray beard, had spent hours examining the papers Cole had rescued from William's house. When he finally emerged from the kitchen where he'd been studying the evidence, his face was grim. "Miss Lucy," he said, tipping his hat, "I owe you an apology." "We all do. If we'd known what William was really doing, ... How could you have known?" Lucy asked wearily. "He fooled everyone. These documents prove he's been stealing land and destroying families for years," the marshal continued. "And the evidence about those missing girls. It's going to help us find the other men involved in this network." Lucy felt a flicker of hope. "Does that mean you might find Cole's sister?" The marshal nodded toward Cole, who was helping rebuild the damaged fence. "I've already sent word to marshals in 3 other territories. If Grace is still alive, we'll find her." As the day wore on, more truth came to light. Other families came forward with their own stories of being cheated by William. The Peterson family, whom William had planned to target next, thanked Lucy, with tears in their eyes. Several young women from nearby towns admitted they'd been approached by William's men with promises of work in distant cities, offers they'd thankfully refused, but the person Lucy most needed to talk to was her father. Thomas had been quiet all day, sitting on the porch and staring at the mountains. When the last visitor finally left, Lucy sat down beside him. "Papa," she said gently, "are you all right?" Thomas looked at her with eyes full of pain. "I almost gave you to a monster, Lucy. I almost sold my own daughter to save a piece of land." "You didn't know," Lucy said, though she couldn't quite keep the hurt out of her voice. "I should have known," Thomas said firmly. "I should have seen that William was wrong for you. I should have found another way. Instead, I was so scared of losing the ranch that I was willing to sacrifice your happiness." Lucy was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "The ranch has been in our family for 15 years, Papa. It's where Mama is buried. I understand why you wanted to save it." "Your Mama would be ashamed of me," Thomas said, his voice breaking. "She always said you should marry for love, not convenience. She made me promise to protect your happiness, not just your future." Lucy reached over and took her father's weathered hand. "You can still keep that promise, Papa, starting now." Thomas squeezed her hand. "You love him, don't you? That young man who saved you." Lucy felt her cheeks warm. "I think I do, but I barely know him." "Sometimes the heart knows things the mind hasn't figured out yet," Thomas said with a sad smile. "Your Mama and I fell in love in 2 weeks. When you know, you know." Over the following days, life slowly returned to normal. The burned barn was cleared away, and neighbors helped rebuild it. Cole worked alongside Thomas and the other men, proving himself to be not just skilled, but also trustworthy and hardworking. Lucy found herself looking forward to their evening conversations more than anything else. They would sit on the porch after dinner, talking about their hopes and dreams. Cole shared stories of his travels, and Lucy told him about her plans for the ranch. "I've been thinking," Cole said one evening as they watched the sunset. "The marshal thinks it might take months to track down all the men involved in William's network. If it's all right with you and your father, I'd like to stay and help until the ranch is back on its feet." Lucy felt her heart skip. "You'd do that?" "I'd do anything for you, Lucy," Cole said quietly. "I hope you know that by now." Lucy looked into his warm brown eyes and felt the truth of his words. "I know, and I care about you too, Cole, more than I probably should." "Why shouldn't you?" Cole asked, moving closer to her on the porch swing. "You're free now. You can choose your own path." "It's just so different from what I expected," Lucy said. "A few weeks ago, I thought my life was over. Now I feel like it's just beginning." Cole reached out and gently touched her cheek. "What do you want your life to look like, Lucy?" Lucy thought for a moment. "I want to work the land with someone who respects me. I want to have a family someday, but only with someone I love. I want to help other people who are in trouble, the way you helped me." "That sounds like a good life," Cole said softly. "What about you?" Lucy asked. "What do you want?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. "I want to find my sister, but I'm starting to realize that I can't spend my whole life searching for her. I want to build something lasting with someone who makes me want to be better than I am." "And you think I do that?" Lucy asked, her heart racing. "I know you do," Cole said. "You're the bravest person I've ever met, Lucy. You stood up to William, even when you thought you might die. You saved my life in that barn. You've shown me what real courage looks like." "Lucy,"